Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
March 31, 2021, the CFTC edition. And we start with that lead story from the National Law Review, which opines that the CFTC is becoming an increasingly necessary agency for combating international fraud. The Commodities Futures Trading Commission, or CFTC, has broad jurisdiction over trades and transactions involving swaps of contracts and commodities for future delivery. This means the CFTC is the analog of the SEC and overall in promulgating rules, including its whistleblower program. Although few are aware of the Commodities Exchange Act, which covers the CFTC, it's something that you probably should be becoming aware of. The CFTC recently was involved, or in 2020 rather, with a FCPA enforcement action, which was the first time we saw the CFTC in that part of the world. And of course, there is expansion of the CFTC whistleblower program as well. So there's increased enforcement, and probably in this era of just a globe awash with COVID-19 bailout money is well needed. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, Archegos blowout heaps pressure on Credit Suisse. For those not familiar with this story, it's the failure of, or actually collapse of, Archegos Capital Management. But Credit Suisse and others really were negligent in their due diligence. This was a family-operated firm, and they were basically given blank checks or several very big credit cards. The owner or the founder of Archegos Capital Management had fled from allegations of miscreant activity in Hong Kong. And so there was a clear pattern and practice of the founder of the investment firm. So Credit Suisse and a host of others really did not perform their due diligence here. The Suez Canal is open, but one of the questions remains, which is why world's container ships grew so big. Did you have this on your risk radar? You may have had a jam in the Suez Canal because the canal's been closed 5 times in 150 years, but the size of the ships is really what is putting pressure on the canal and other locations. The Ever Given, the ship that got stuck, is longer than the Empire State Building and capable of carrying furnishings for 20,000 separate apartments. It was freed on Monday, but it was left behind disruptions and backlogs in global shipping that could take months or weeks, possibly months to unravel. So it's a crisis for sure, but it's a crisis that's years in the making because shipping lines are just becoming bigger and bigger. They can't go longer, so they're going taller and fatter. So big problems for the shipping industry and for those who depend on the shipping industry, which is, of course, everyone. And then finally, the Supreme Court has a case in front of it where investors sued that there was certain language in Goldman's codes of conduct which said that their reputation was one of its most important assets. We have extensive procedures and controls designed to identify and address conflicts of interest, that the bank wrote that our client's interest will always come first. Of course, everyone knows that is hockey puck language and certainly aspirational, but now it's in front of the Supreme Court as to whether that language can be actionable. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.